Welcome into the ESPN FC studios. Time for one of our favorite segments, Ask the Ref.
Right. We need a ref.
We need a ref. There he is, Peter Walton.
Can we not just shout at him instead of asking him?
No. I think you guys have probably done that more than enough over your respective careers. Peter, we did this kind of weird, quirky thing called the Luck Index here at ESPN. And basically the idea is that calls over the long term tend to even out. It turns out the Luck Index says no, calls don't even out. So from the official standpoint, explain yourself. How come these things don't even out?
Well, they don't even out because it's down to luck, isn't it? And it's as simple as that. Referees can't see everything, and sometimes they get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. Over the course of the season, it's often been said that it evens itself out, but as we've seen with this this analysis done by ESPN, perhaps it doesn't even out, and therefore the referee, you've got to get the decision right first time.
Stevie,
so actually, if it evens itself out, that's just lucky.
Right. There you go.
Where it comes right down to
this is the inception of luck.
Are you lucky enough to get a good referee, or are you bad lucky to get...
How long is this? Over a period of what?
Yeah, right. It's a good question.
Over a period of how long does it even itself out?
A decade, eternity?
I don't
yeah,
know.
Well, we got to ask the Luck Index. All right, we have some questions from fans here, Peter. So,
yeah.
The first question from Twitter is, Peter, would you have sent Sergio Ramos off in the Champions League final? Hashtag asking for a friend named Mo Salah. What do you think?
Well, look, every Liverpool fan out there would say, yes, he'd got to go because of the consequences of what he did, his actions. But from a refereeing point of view, from a law point of view, Ramos made a clumsy challenge on Mo Salah. Yes, he was clumsy in terms of his falling over on top of him as well. Probably reckless. For me, it was a yellow card. It was reckless. I don't think it elevated itself to a straight red card. So, unfortunately, friend at Mo Salah, Ramos probably had the right decision with a yellow card.
Hey, Pete, what about Ramos when he's elbowed Karius in the head? If the referee sees it, that's a red card, right?
If the referee sees it, Steve, that's a red card. That was done, again, I can't go into the mind of Ramos. I don't know what his intention was, but clearly his action there looked to be endangering the safety. It looked to be his elbow used as a weapon rather than a tool. And I think the right outcome there, had it been seen, would have been a red card.
Pete, can I ask you, how many officials are there watching in the Champions League final?
Oh, well, I don't know how many officials, but every supporter is an official.
You've got one in the middle. You've got one in the middle. You've got one in each line. You've got a guy behind each goal. When is that?
You've got six.
Five.
You've got the fourth official. Six.
So we got six and not one of them shot.
Six.
I mean, that's a bit strange, isn't it?
Well, I'm not suggesting any of them didn't see it or saw it. It's the angle you see it at, it's the context you see it at, and it's how you see it. I mean, we can sit here and look at the video monitor and say, yeah, but, sometimes you see things, Stephen, sometimes you don't. And even if it's right in front of you.
An unlucky official. All right, so next question here. What do you think about giving refs microphones for when they use VAR so they can explain their decisions to the crowd? NFL already does it, and it seems to work pretty well. Peter?
Actually, I'm all for it. I think as VAR evolves, communication will evolve, and that's almost a stage two. I know that IFL are looking at the communication aspect of VAR, and one of those aspects is to involve the crowd more. The spectator needs to know what's going on, and therefore, the communication angle should be looked at. In fact, I attended a game only last week, the MLS All-Stars game. They have a pre-game called the homegrown game, and that was introduced the very first time, where the referee actually spoke to the crowd and advised the crowd why he'd given such a decision. It takes no more than 10 seconds or so. It's not a conversation, it's a bullet point thing, and the crowd, I think, appreciated it.
Guys, from crowd, coaches, television, it kind of seems like a no-brainer, right? To have the refs be able to communicate it, Shaka?
I'd like to see it in practice. I have to say, initially, when this was kind of raised some time ago, I thought, why do the referees have to explain themselves at the point? They're there to do a job. You make a decision. You trust in the referees to make that decision. They don't have to explain it at that point. But, again, seeing how VAR worked, seeing how things have, when the referee has to go to the sidelines, I don't think the disruption was all that, as some people are making it out to be. I'd like to see this in practice, and I may very well change my mind.
Stevie?
I don't like it.
No?
I would rather the referees came out after the game and explained not just one decision, but the decisions that needed to be made in the game. I think referees are under enough pressure without having to explain themselves in the middle of a game and then carry on refereeing. I don't like it. I would prefer that they spoke afterwards when they were calm, cool and composed.
Peter,
you wouldn't ask a player in the middle of a game, would you?
No, it's fair. It's fair. But Peter, what do you think about that, the idea of a post-match press conference for the officials?
Yeah, just first of all, I mean, we're only looking at the official making an announcement once every 3 games, the way that the VAR is beginning to evolve. So it's not as if they're explaining every decision. It's explaining those match-changing decisions that they've had to resort to VAR to have a look at. So we're not looking at a great deal. And in terms of coming out afterwards and speaking about it, again, I agree with that. I think Major League Soccer already implement that, where a pool reporter is allowed to ask a question. That question then is answered by the match official, and a subsequent question is if necessary. And I do think that the transparency and the understanding of why match officials make decisions will make the game better. Fans, media may not agree with the answer, but at least they'll know the rationale behind such decisions being given in games.
All right, I like this next question from Twitter. How influential on the game can players be by conversing with the ref over plays, whether it be shouting, banter, or mild discussion? Peter?
Yeah, well, it depends on who you're refereeing, of course. You know, there are players out there whose main job is to get into the head of the referee, and it's down to the referee to realise that. Yes, you know, there's times when you have a dialogue and you'll talk with players as the game's progressing, but ultimately, you know, the player's there to play and the referee's there to referee the game, and he'll referee the game. In terms of, you know, a player asking questions all the time, yes, that's happened to me in my career many times, and sometimes it is off-putting, and it's down to the referee to say to the player, OK, enough's enough, I'm not here just to answer all your questions, get on with the game. Some players do like to have a bit of banter with the referee, though, that's for sure.
Stevie, you had a certain grin when I read that question. I couldn't help but notice.
I know a lot of players who thought they were getting in the referee's head, but I don't actually believe anybody ever really did. All the referees I remember taking it from the likes of Dalglish and Souness, and you know, there were 2 players in Scotland, or one in particular, a guy called Willie Miller, who was famous. You know, the opposition coaches would always say to the referee, you know, why's Willie Miller got the whistle today? But I don't believe referees actually got swayed one way or the other. But forever and a day, and I'm sure it still goes on today, you will try and influence a referee.
You know, we do see it sometimes before a match. Managers will go out into the media and say something to try to condition. You've done it before.
100%. I used to grab the 4th official before every game, particularly when there was a guy called Alejandro Morena playing against me. I would get the 4th official. If I couldn't get the referee before the game, I would get the 4th official, definitely. I would get the 4th official anyway and tell them, you know, see this guy here, you better keep your eye on because he'll flop all day long.
Peter, go ahead.
Seb, I mean, I'll leave you this one. I remember refereeing a game back in the Premier League, and my father came to the game and we was driving home, and my father said, you know, there was 2 referees on that field today, and El Hadj Diouf was the better one. So sometimes players can have a meaning over the game for sure, and it did for me.
That's from his own dad.
I know, right? Yeah. These Twitter folks think they can criticize the refs when they're getting it worse at home. That's a tough one. All right, well, look, Alejandro's not here to defend himself, which makes us say...
But it's true. But we all know it's true.
I'll tell you what.
He don't need to defend himself. It's true. He knows.
There's 100,000 minutes of football to show Alejandro exactly what he was there. Defend himself.
Look, if you ever do miss an episode, as Ale has today, unfortunately, you can just head over to the website,
he fell over again,
ESPNFC.com. Check out the podcast available daily for download.